Key point 1. Your thoughts determine how you view life, and that's why you need to learn how to control them. Your brain is always looking for the most natural way out, which could be the death of your ethical judgment making. When there is a chance to preserve energy and assume something without overthinking, your brain will exercise this option. It usually ends up substituting effort for creativity, thanks to your thoughts. Several factors, illusion, availability, and experience, influence your decisions. These factors lead you to make biased conclusions. Thinking is not as easy as it seems. It is an art we must master. People use intuition, the so-called gut feeling, instead of facts when making decisions. The same goes for problems that are too difficult to solve using logic and intellectual ability. People go with what they feel is correct. This phenomenon represents fast thinking, which does not waste too much energy and allows you to evaluate the situation and make relevant decisions quickly. Slow thinking, however, is the type that requires a conscious and energy-consuming thought process, but uses logic rather than memory and emotions. Therefore, mastery of thoughts comes from understanding what constitutes intuition and assumptions. Experiments and facts shape your thinking, which is why you should know when to switch between intuition and empirical facts. Daniel Kahneman is a master of his trade. His knowledge of behavioral economics, cognitive thinking, and psychology put him among the best. He believes in placing facts over assumptions and that behavioral patterns can be easy using relative examples and instances. Follow this detailed summary to find out how your brain deceives you and hurts your decision-making process and what you can do to prevent this. Key point 2. The two systems associated with your brain are responsible for how and when you think. According to psychologists Keith Stanovich and Richard West, humans have two primary systems for thinking. System 1 operates automatically and quickly without voluntary control and with little effort. System 2 allocates attention to effortful mental activity of any kind. Humans avoid overloading their brains with information by consciously or subconsciously breaking tasks into smaller steps. This is because we naturally prefer solutions that require minimum mental effort and strength. The moment a solution requires a lot of effort, the attention paid to it starts to decrease. While System 1 makes instant decisions based on habit, System 2 evaluates and supervises System 1's input, establishing balance in your brain's function. However, this action relies on something other than facts, namely faith and intuition. System 1 usually provides the information wrapped around impressions to System 2. These impressions turn to beliefs that humans hold on to. The thoughts then turn to actions that create an identity for you. The human brain is programmed to adjust to speed and stress. Cognitive ease comes into play because you behave differently when trying to do something with ease. Another function of System 1 is that it helps you shape what's customary to you, what surprises you, and the cause of these things. You should note that System 1 needs to make an accurate conclusion from the information sent. It doesn't care about the precise data assessment, it makes its conclusions. System 2 works hard to find an escape route for you, especially when you are stuck with finding a solution to a problem. When System 1 faces a tricky situation that it can't find a solution for, it'll seek the help of System 2, calling it into action to find a way around the problem immediately. However, sometimes your brain deceives you into believing that a task is simple. This phenomenon happens because your brain wants to save as much energy as possible when executing a task. So, when System 1 feels it can handle a situation or problem, it won't activate or call for the help of System 2. These two systems work together to help you perform tasks and make decisions. Key point 3. You are more likely to make judgments based on bias and intuition rather than facts and statistics. You tend to jump to a conclusion about a scenario based on the sample provided. This logic also applies to numbers. You believe that samples involving small numbers come from a small population. The moment you learn that 5 million people work in the public sector in Bulgaria, you're inclined to believe that Bulgaria's population is small just because of the sample. These are some of the things that shape how you view and evaluate your environment. The anchoring effect occurs when a particular value for an unknown quantity influences your estimate of that quantity. Humans place value on something because of what anchors the number associated with it. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman invented the fortune wheel rig to stop at 10 or 65. Students at the University of Oregon then participated in this experiment. They were supposed to spin the wheel and then answer 2 questions about the percentage of African nations in the UN. The first one was, is that percentage higher or lower than the wheel's number? The second one was, what is your guess about the actual percentage? Those who drew 10 from the wheel gave lower percentages, and those with 65 answered with higher ones. Therefore, the random number they noticed before answering the questions subconsciously influenced their judgment. The ease with which you can come up with examples determines the frequency of events. Immediately an example comes to mind, your brain pieces together instances of a similar occurrence, and your mind then tricks you into believing that such a situation is familiar. The psychological mechanisms that produce anchoring make us far more suggestible than most of us would want to be. Daniel Kahneman. A similar effect comes from traumatic events or even news about those events. Consequently, after you stumble upon the report of a horrific plane crash with no survivors, the chances of you deciding to fly on a plane lower dramatically. You always knew about the possibility of accidents, but now you know about a specific example, the activity seems more dangerous than before. Key point 4. Inadequate and inaccurate history affects the present and the future. People base their preventative actions on previous negative scenarios. If, for example, we build a wall to stop a flood, its strength and height will most likely depend on the last heaviest downpour. No thanks to the media, there are several misconceptions about the true extent of things and how important or less meaningful they are. Humans try to simplify life by believing in a world that is perfect in their minds. By examining evidence and base rates, it's known that humans tend to focus on evidence. Simply put, a base rate is a term in statistics that denotes the probability of something. Base rates occur as a result of needing more information. When the data produced is not specific or detailed, base rates come into view, telling the brain to make a conclusion based on assumptions. For example, when you see a pink car, you might assume that its driver is a woman based on the stereotype that pink is a female color. The moment the brain gets more specific information, it changes its focus and concludes evidence rather than the base rate. Placing absolute belief in the conclusion drawn from detailed information can be misleading. Indeed, a tall and thin athlete would most likely play basketball, but it's not always so. When you draw your conclusion from a description of something, there will be times when you will end up making the wrong assumptions. When it comes to descriptions, adding details is different from being specific. Simply adding elements to a piece of information makes it more likely to be believed, but it doesn't mean that the data is accurate. In fact, it just resembles a story, which urges people to believe it. However, the idea behind a piece of good information is that it should be precise. Precision can come in short forms when it comes to describing a scenario. The ability to be specific helps you think quickly. If you care about being thought credible and intelligent, do not use complex language where simpler language will do. Daniel Kahneman. Key point 5. Statistics help us draw conclusions, but they are not as informative as real-life experiences. If you come from a place where humans don't eat animals, you would find it hard to believe that humans are responsible for the death of 65% of animals worldwide. Also, regardless of existing facts and statistics, a situation is not always bound to follow a regular pattern. For example, if a tall serial killer has terrorized a community for a year, it doesn't mean the subsequent death is from the same serial killer. Existing facts help in the absence of any other information. Predictions come from a careful study of past events, the current frequency of the same events, and the future possibilities of it happening. Predictions and forecasts are a part of everyday life. Across all fields of study, experts and professionals make predictions based on calculations and the facts available. You are even doing it in your personal life. We base some predictions on recent occurrences, experiences, or familiarity. By seeing specific cues, you can deduce what is bound to happen next. However, there are several other things that you can't only predict or forecast by showing bias. To produce unbiased predictions, you must start with the average information available and then gradually work toward getting more data from existing guidelines, statistics, and facts. Correcting your intuitive predictions is System 2's job. System 2 is responsible for the hard work, so it collects information from what you have experienced and what you are experiencing. If not controlled, intuitive predictions can cause problems. It's not easy to stop, but you can resist its dominance by training yourself to identify intuitive predictions. You can control your thinking by maintaining your vigilance against them. The illusion of understanding determines and influences how people view and approach life. People rewrite gathered knowledge to fit certain agendas. This illusion only talks about something that happened while overlooking what didn't. These biased narratives have created the faux notion that as long as they are familiar with the past, they can shape and reshape the future. However, how best can a future be modeled when the knowledge about history is biased and twisted to suit certain narratives? Did you know? According to media statistics, 52% of Americans regularly encounter fake news online. Key point 6. A successful event makes people believe that the steps leading up to the event must be equally successful. As much as you believe you know your past, most stories you've heard only talk about the event and neglect the preceding steps. Validation comes from belief most of the time. Even though there's little to no evidence, humans tend to validate what they believe because of influence, pressure, and blind faith. When you're confident about something, it doesn't mean that it is right. It only means that since your System 1 has found it easy to process the information, it jumps to conclusions. What you see is all there is, WYSIATI, is an approach employed by System 1 when it wants to do lazy work. The illusion of validation keeps us biased in judgment making. Structured impressions that have a well-planned formula are better than intuition and assumptions. When you have a roadmap that buttresses your images, always take it over your intuition. Instincts give you biased judgments, while formulas give you a guideline for approaching a task. It is okay to trust your basic intuition in typical situations and conditions. However, when you change the environment, you should become more careful and rely on facts. Change of environment means you have to learn new things, and since your intuition is primarily based on stored information, it won't be advisable to rely on it. Even though we plan, initiate, and execute projects based on facts and stories available from the best-case scenario, it is not the only one worth studying. Carefully evaluate many conditions to plan successfully. Optimism as a defense mechanism against doubt is an art form. Having disregard for doubt breeds confidence as well as overconfidence. The best thing to do is to moderate your optimism by employing the pre-mortem tactic. The pre-mortem tactic allows you to assume that a project has failed. By pretending it did, your brain works continuously to discover why it happened. In doing so, you can explore probable faults and loopholes that you can fix. Key point 7. Your decisions are affected by memories and the desire to avoid loss. As we've seen earlier, simple evaluations of a situation are the work of System 1, while careful assessment and comparison are the work of System 2. These are two selves, the experiencing self, the remembering self. The remembering self is associated with System 1, as it automatically forms memories, while the experienced self represents System 2, which rules our conscious thinking. These two selves work hand in hand when it comes to making decisions. The experiencing self helps you decide whether you like an experience, and the remembering self focuses on your reaction when you first encounter it. People tend to disregard the backgrounds and focus on memories, which may not accurately represent the reality of what happened and may lead to flawed decisions. Your memory doesn't care about the duration of the event. It only focuses on your feelings. For instance, imagine you went on a trip with your friends. You had lots of fun, discovered new places, and felt blissful. But then, as you were walking around the city, someone pushed you to the ground and stole your phone. You felt angry, frustrated, and sad. Even though the whole trip before that moment was perfect, the intense feelings you got during that one negative occurrence tainted your memories. Regardless of how recent, your personal experiences and memories are only somewhat reliable in decision-making. Regarding taking a risk and examining loss, we always look for the safest bet regardless of the probable outcome. When it comes to gambling, you are unwilling to take risks because when the probability of a loss is higher than that of a win, you instinctively want to avoid it. Humans are always more particular about avoiding losses than working hard to secure gains. As long as there is a chance for a loss, the brain begins working toward avoiding it. Adopting risk policies to guard against loss is helpful, but it's not good to exaggerate it. See a decision as one of the numerous options available to you. Don't automatically dismiss an option because it contains potential loss. Since rewards and punishments mold your reaction and motivate your actions, you should pay attention to them. Conclusion: your thoughts are a combination of many events that shape your life. You'll easily make better decisions when you control how well you think. Understanding your two systems and training yourself to control your thoughts gives you an advantage. Many people suffer from the inability to think well or understand their thoughts. Your thoughts heavily influence your actions. If they are incorrect, there are many ways you can recalibrate your life. You can start by being precise anytime you have to describe something. You can also decide to focus more on evidence than bias. Thus, you will open your mind to many other options to make better choices. Clear thoughts creates more opportunities for you in your personal and work lives. Knowing how to switch between fast and slow thinking gives successful people the edge over others. You can succeed at many things once you know how to use your thoughts to influence your actions and decisions. There's no magic recipe for success. You need maximum focus, determination, and the right mindset. Your thought process affects all of these. Try this. Discover your thought process, evaluate your judgments about people, and see if you are making a reasonable conclusion. If yes, maintain it. If not, focus on working on your bias by seeing beyond your intuition.